Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Nigel Jordan. I'm the chairman of Kent Tennis. This is now my last year. I used to be visible to many of you in another incarnation. I was our treasurer for 9 years, so many of you will know me. Normally, Andy Candler, who's one of our trustees, and he represents tennis venues and the community venues. He would normally host this, but he's on holiday. So you've unfortunately got me today, but we do have other tennis royalty in our midst. We have Janice, of course, who you will all know. And we have Keith Gill, who is a fellow trustee, and he's our sort of Kent's man at the LTA. He's what's called our LTA councillor. So, and before him, that job was done by me, and before me, it was done by Sandy Proctor. So he's sort of in an illustrious line of luminaries. And it's nice to see all of you guys on the call. The topic today is about legal structure of clubs and governance of clubs, and it's a question we are often asked, and it's something that is really important, but it may seem a bit dull and turgid, but it's difficult. It's a difficult topic, and there are some choices, and it's the sort of thing is generally put off. But what I will do is I'll go through some of the choices and some of the logic that I think a club should follow. And Rob Slater from MEPM will then come in. His club is going through this, and there will be others on the call who have also done this. And we, of course, in Kent Tennis recently did this and became a CIO and a charity. So there is a lot of knowledge on the call. And I suspect the biggest question from many of you will be, well, do we have to do it and why should we do it? But that's entirely valid. So it's there to provoke thought, maybe for you to take this presentation away and give it to your committee. And all answers to the questions in this are entirely fine. There is no compulsion from the LTA for anyone to change, except at county level there has been compulsion, but at club level you are still free to remain as you are. But it's a question clubs should ask themselves. So Janice, if it's okay, I'll share my screen and just go through a presentation. I'll just check what comes up. So I'm not sure what you guys can see. What have you got, Janice?
Yeah, we got your presentation on the screen now.
Have you got the slides down the side or not?
Yes, yeah, down the sides.
Can I get rid of that? I should be able to get rid of that.
If you put it to slideshow, yeah, put it to slideshow. That's that from the beginning.
Okay, have you just got one slide now, Janice?
Yeah, we've also got the next slide showing, which
I don't quite know why I've got that.
No.
Okay, I'm not quite sure why. I've never had that come up before.
It's like a notes. It says notes. It's a notes one. Maybe because you've got your presentation with the notes.
I haven't got notes on it.
Oh, no, there's no notes there.
See, my screen is only showing the one slide. I don't quite know why that is.
What about other people? Can you see two slides?
Can you just see the one big slide, or can you see something else?
I can see the first slide on the left-hand side, which is slightly bigger, and then on the right-hand side, there's a column with the next slide in it as well.
Yeah, I'm rather hoping.
Click to add notes.
Yeah, I don't want to add notes. I'd quite like to end. Let me just end that. I wonder why that's okay. No, that's not working.
Set up slideshow.
No.
From beginning.
or from the current slide? I think
No,
Nigel
I did it from the current slide.
Oh, you did. What about from the beginning then?
That's what I did.
Yeah, try from the current slide, then go back onto number 1.
No, it's exactly
No.
the same.
No, it's the same.
Nigel, that's okay. It's perfectly legible.
Perfectly legible. Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is, most clubs, but by no means all, are unincorporated associations that, that has been around as a way of gathering people together particularly in social and sports clubs since time began, really. And it's a very loose structure. And as time has gone on, it's increasingly uncomfortable in today's world. I have to say, it does cause a number of problems, but equally, it still can be used, and depending on a number of factors, still may be your choice. So the way I'm approaching this for you is to address these questions. So why do we need to consider this at all? Why do we need to consider it now? What things should we consider? And if we decide to act, what are our choices? Where can we get support, and what are the basic processes? And then Rob will talk about what he's done in MEPM and is doing, and others who have changed or have different structures can also chip in and help the debate, and you can all ask your questions then. So moving swiftly on, why do we need to consider this? And this is the biggest hurdle, really. And I think most clubs should put this on a committee meeting agenda, if only to come to the decision they want to stay as they are. But you may decide that you want to have a closer look at it. So as it says here, most clubs are a simple unincorporated association. And that, what it just means is you may or may not even have a written constitution in many clubs, but in law, it's just a group of people who have a common purpose. There isn't a substantial structure. There isn't the sort of structure that would go with a company, for example. And if you enter into agreements and contracts, or you have land which is registered at land registry, or a contract with your coach, that should be signed by your trustees. Now, an unincorporated association typically is run by its trustees, but I know many, many clubs I've spoken to, so they don't even know who their trustees are. And that ought to be a bit of an alarm bell for you. So, you should know that, and what you do should be done knowingly. So if you are an unincorporated association and you want to stay as such, you should know who your trustees are. You should make sure they're up to the task, that they want to do the task, and that they're willing to take the responsibilities and liabilities that go with it. So I think that's your first question. And secondly, do you have a constitution that's written down which says who does what and who can't do things? So you should, as a minimum, have that. And your trustees shouldn't be there forever. It's not fair to them, but equally it's not good governance that people are in post forever. And why this has cropped up now is because more and more people are running to the courts. More and more people are, running for compensation for this, that, and the other. And the truth of it is, if you are an unincorporated association type club, all of your members carry unlimited liability if there is a mega disaster. But the practical implication is your trustees will be the people who are named in any action taken by someone else. So if there is, for example, a disaster and someone decides to sue the club, they can't sue all the members. They won't know who they are. There's far too many to name, and they keep changing. But the trustees will be constant, at least for a while. So that is who will be named. And there have been a number of court cases where trustees are put in a really, really, really horrible position, being on the hook in a court civil or criminal case. And one of the things that came to my mind around this was, and this is talking at a school, there was a county running its county championships which asked to borrow some courts or hire some courts from a local club. And this isn't Kent, and this isn't close to Kent. And the county itself didn't have any courts of its own, so it hired some courts from a local club, and the club had no further involvement in the event at all. The county team ran the event, organised the event, oversaw the championship that was played over a few days. But during the event, a big accident happened, and somebody then sued the club. Well, they tried to sue the county first, and the county's insurers said, no, this happened on the courts, and this was an issue about the courts, and therefore this is to be taken up with the club, and the club was sued. Now, in the end, it all turned out okay. The people at the club were not responsible. It was a county matter, but the insurers, as insurers are wont to do, try to duck and dive and shift the liability onto whoever they think's the weakest link. And the trustees of this club were dragged through the courts for quite some months on an enormous financial compensation risk. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that to be the case. But that is the type of risk you run as an unincorporated club, and particularly if you're a trustee. And what that leads to is people being very unwilling to be the trustees of a club. They think there's no gain and it is all risk. And in a way, who can blame them? So that, as the world has evolved and become more litigious, is the state of play today. More and more clubs are finding it difficult to get people willing to be trustees. And that was actually the case for Kent Tennis too. That was one of the factors in our making a change, but by no means the only one. And you will also find, if you try to open new bank accounts, it is increasingly difficult to get banking facilities as an unincorporated association, and it is certainly difficult to borrow money. And if any of you try to get money from the LTA under the quick access loan, you will be made, as a requirement of the loan, to change to something other than an unincorporated association, to either incorporate or become a charity. They will not lend to an unincorporated association. So those are the reasons why you may want to think about it. Now, as a club at your committee, you may have this discussion and may think, well, actually, our risks in this space are minimal and we're happy as we are. And that is absolutely fine. But it's important that you, A, document the discussion in your minutes, and it's also important that you knowingly stay as you are rather than just do it accidentally. People need to know what the risks are and that they're willing to take them, and your trustees need to be comfortable being trustees. So that's kind of a bit of a doom-laden scenario, and I'm apologizing for that really, because it is a bit heavy. But that is, kind of where you need to start. What's the worst that could happen, and how would it affect individuals and the club as a whole? So that's why you need to think about it. And then why should you do it now? Well, there's never a better time than now, and it's simply good governance. And as I say, considering it doesn't mean you have to change. Increasingly, the government wants sport to be better governed, and you may or may not know that the way government provides funding to tennis is through Sport England, and Sport England, it trickles down through the LTA or through various sporting charitable bodies. And as part of that, anyone that government funding goes to has to abide by the rules that the government sets effectively. And that is why the LTA, which was also an unincorporated association till 2010, has now become a company, and why counties have now been forced to have a legal structure. At this point, no one's forcing that down at club level, but it's sort of the direction of travel, and it's worth thinking about should it ever become mandatory. So that's why now. And as I say, persuading volunteers to become trustees, I definitely know has become harder over the time I've been around. So think about it, have a good discussion, decide where you stand, and document it. And if you stay where you are, that's fine. If you decide to change, well, that's also good, and there is help. So how do you make the decision on what to do? It depends how big the club is. It depends what you own. So if you are probably at Tunbridge Wells, and I don't know this is true, but if you either have a lease on the land or you own the land, and you have lots of paid staff and you have coaches, you have agreements with, it's very difficult to do that legally in a sound way if you're unincorporated. So it really depends on what you have. And if you run out of ability to get banking facility or whatever. So on this slide is a list of things you may or may not have. And on there is your ability or inability to get trustees, your ability or inability to get banking, and what are the opportunities if you do change. Now, for us in Kent Tennis, we became a charity, and I have to say, we did it with a purpose in mind, but it has exceeded our expectations in terms of bringing additional benefits by a long way. And, you know, a lot of clubs, I know in the east of Kent, outside the M25, it is a lot easier to get grants than it is if you're in the London boroughs. And, you know, anyone that is a charity or has a sound legal structure finds it easier to get money as a grant. You still can get grants as an unincorporated body, but it's not as easy. So there are things to think about on this slide. It's what you own, what are the risks, and then versus what are the costs of a change. So if you become a company, there will be a certain amount of costs, but you may already incur them. So if you already prepare a really thorough set of accounts of the type that could be filed at Companies House, then what you have now is already good enough for any future. If you don't, if you just have something on the back of a cornflake box, then you would end up needing to prepare proper accounts if you became a company, because you'd have to file accounts with Companies House. So those, you know, there's a list there, and they will apply differently to different venues. So it's worth just thinking about your scenario, your situation, what you have, what you don't have, what the risks are, and what your ability to get people and banking is, as to whether or not you're sort of standing on a burning bridge, really. So if you do decide to act and you think, well, we need to at least explore what other options are out there, there are basically two lead options. One is a limited company, and one is a charitable incorporated organization. They are both solid legal structures. They're both the types of organization you can get banking. You don't need trustees in quite the same way. They're not liable in quite the same way. And a company is regulated by Companies House, and a CIO is regulated by the Charity Commission. So they both have similar reporting requirements in terms of filing accounts and providing details of who the directors or trustees are. So they are the basic two options you have. If you don't want or need charitable status, then a limited company is probably the simpler option. Okay. And there are two types of company, and I've been very bold and stuck on red on this slide, not recommended. A company limited by shares is really a profit-making business where you want to make profits, you want to then distribute them to the shareholders, and you do that by way of dividends. It's not what is recommended for a sports club, because sports clubs by and large are sort of not-for-profit organisations. Any surplus they make is normally reinvested and kept within the club, and members are guarantors rather than owners. They, you know, we're all here sort of looking after our club, but it remains when we leave. And so if you opt to change and look for a company, it's a company limited by guarantee is the shape that I would suggest you would be looking to have. And a charitable incorporated organisation, this was designed in 2013 to fit sports organisations, social clubs, you know, leisure bodies really that aren't profit making, and you end up with a charity and what is effectively the equivalent of a company. It's only governed by the Charity Commission. We don't have, in Kent Tennis, this is what we are, and we don't have to file at Companies House. We just have to make our reports to the Charity Commission, but it works very much like a company does. We don't have directors. We have 10 trustees, but they don't have personal liability. Their liability is limited to £1. So, you know, there's no difficulty of attracting people as trustees. So it's a recognised solid structure. Banks are happy with it. Lenders, Tennis Foundation, who make the quick access loans, they're all happy with it. Yeah, it's your other option. It's like two things in one. It's a legal structure and charity in one. So in trying to work through this, where can you get support? Well, certainly Kent Tennis, and me personally, I'm very happy to help have the debate and work through what works in your setting. We do have clubs that are already have a solid legal structure, who have been through this process or who have operated in a firm legal structure for many years, and who can give you advice and explain how it works on the ground for them. But there is no answer that works universally for everyone. I know in Kent we have clubs that are friendly societies. We have all manner of what's the other one? A credit union, one of our clubs. They have a number of different structures, but only a company or a CIO has a sufficient legal structure really to solve most of the big problems that could arise. It's fair to say that Kent Tennis, we converted to a charity with almost no legal advice, with no outside help. We did it ourselves, and we just took our time, planned very carefully, worked through it logically, and just did it. And are very glad we did. So obviously, you know, some clubs will want to take legal advice and may need legal support if you've got a lot of assets that need ownership to be registered properly or transferred. And there'll be other clubs who don't actually need any help at all. And it depends what skill you have amongst your committee members as well. So firstly, it's important to understand what a charity is. And this question is only likely to be relevant for the bigger clubs. Smaller clubs might want to register as a CASC, which is a Community Amateur Sports Club. It's a status you get by seeking it from HMRC. It requires your club to be open to the community. So some clubs where membership rules are very strict will not get CASC status. So a club such as Old Wilsonians that I'm a member of, its football club is or was closed only to members of a school, alumni, and for that reason it was turned down in the past for CASC status. So you have to be open to the community, which is something Kent Tennis, absolutely supports. But CASC status gives you an amount of relief from business rates on an ex gratia basis. So when times get tough, I'm always nervous the council might withdraw that, and from certain taxation. But for that to be worthwhile, you've got to have things that are taxable, like large amounts of bank interest or paying large business rates. If you don't do either of those things, then CASC isn't likely to be of great benefit either. But that's an alternative for smaller clubs to think about instead of charitable status. If you're a larger club, charity will help you raise funds. You can do it with gift aid. You do get rates relief and tax exemptions, and a lot of people who provide grants are more willing to provide them to a charity than to somebody who's not. So again, it's just something to think about. You can start off by registering a company and then at a later date decide to register that company as a charity. So you can do it that way. It can be done in steps. If you know from the outset you want to become a charity, then I would say you should also consider the incorporated organization, charitable incorporated organization, CIO option. As I said, every club, every scenario will need its own thought processes to see what is the best option for you and your members. So if you decide to do something, what do you actually have to do? So I think step by step, slowly is important. You need to get your board to agree that they want to explore change initially, to even consider it. And even at that point, if you decide, no, we're happy as we are, please document it and keep that in your minutes. But if you decide that, yeah, let's at least have a proper look at this, then I think you might want to set up a little subgroup of 3 or 4 people to have a good dig around, see what they feel about the options, investigate how all of this might apply to your club, and do it on behalf of the committee. Make sure they understand why they want to change or why they don't want to change. Make sure those reasons are clear. And then once they've come to some views of what's available and what they might want to look at, discuss that as a whole board, and your board as a whole, your committee as a whole, ought to agree whether to proceed or not. It should be something everyone as a whole decides, not one person. And then eventually you may want to float this with your members at an AGM or an EGM. In Kent Tennis, we did it, as many of you will know, step by step. Over the course of 2 or 3 AGMs, we walked the path very slowly, getting members permission to do that. And only when you get to the end and everyone is happy do I think you then have to have a plan of what you do and do it in a logical order. And it's worth thinking about all the things that entails. So every contract, every bank, everything that has your old name on, you need to think about how that needs to be changed to something new if you change. So that's a lot of theory and all a bit heavy. So I was going to go over to Rob from MEPM, who have been considering this. And Rob, would you like to I'll stop
Yes.
sharing my screen and you can come in and explain. I thought I stopped sharing my screen there.
I think you have, Nigel.
Have I? All right, I've got the PowerPoint up and not the Zoom. Sorry, that's me. Carry on. Right, Rob,
Okay.
you would like to just explain where you're at MEPM and what made you think about it and how your thought processes and procedures have moved.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Nigel. My background, obviously, Nigel's got a very good expertise on this subject, and if I'd have known that 2 years ago, I'd have definitely tapped him up. But we are where we are. Just a little bit of background for those who don't know MEPM. We're a five court club, two artificial clay and three we've recently just had Poraflex put on. Over the last 10 years, we've probably doubled our adult membership up to about 180. And then juniors were up to about 120. But what I was actually the reason we were kind of thinking about the structure, first of all, there was guidance from the LTA. But secondly, we're getting into a lot of contracts about resurfacing courts. We've opened up our club to pay and play. We have community links such as walk-in tennis, free tennis Fridays for juniors. And so we've got a lot of footfall on the courts, not all signed up members. We've got a lot of volunteers giving time. So we just felt that we wanted to have a structure that supported them, and our trustees, of which I know I'm one of them. I tell you, I literally was one of those guys that Nigel says, "Do you know who your trustees were?" And I knew I was one, but could I name the other two or three? I'm not sure I could initially. So we took the decision to explore it, changing our structure. We looked at other clubs. There were one or two have gone to the limited company, I guarantee. And one that we had heard of that had gone to CIO. We took some advice. There wasn't a overwhelming reason to go for one or the other. It wasn't a big issue, but we just felt that is all very marginal. We just felt simplicity at this stage, a company limited by guarantee, would be our third option. The LTA has a lot of guidance on this on their website under the governance area, so that's worth looking at. We went to 3 solicitors and also accountants to get some quotes to understand the process. Some of them had good knowledge of it, others less so. So be mindful of that. On the LTA site, and I'm talking here about company limited by guarantee, there are template articles of association. So I'm a layman. I kind of went into those and then tried to make them fit our club circumstances, number of directors, etc. We're about to incorporate, so that will happen in the next week or two. We will be having 7 directors, but the way the articles are being structured is that there'll be a minimum of 3 because people do resign, etc., and trying to get people on. But we will have a maximum of 7. We will have a management committee underneath, and from that management committee, 3 members or three people will be on the board of directors. Therefore, 4 will be not on the management committee to kind of bring some sort of independence in any votes on that board. Beneath the articles of association, there still will be some club rules to do the day-to-day handling of the club. That's what I'm going to say. So the term of office tends to be 2 years. And then we're having that the directors can be re-elected for 3 years or 3 occasions, so a term of 6 in total. If you are already registered for CASC, the process is that, as my understanding is, that you have to deregister in your current state and then re-register in your new company state structure. You need to be mindful of stamp duty if you do own land, moving from trustees to the company. You need just to be mindful that your solicitor and accountants can deal with that. One accountant did raise the point of corporation tax, which has a threshold of 50,000, but we did ascertain that membership income does not form part of the calculation so far as corporation tax is concerned. So that's our major income. But if you've got a bar, then that's something else. I would totally support what Nigel has said about getting 2 or 3 people, because this has kind of fallen on my shoulders, and without feeling sorry for myself, you do feel the weight of expectation and therefore delays. So definitely get a couple of people to work on this. And also supporting what Nigel's said about banking or similar. We've got a sponsor for one of our Free Tennis Fridays, and they asked about our legal structure. So it is relevant. And the one final point, Nigel's talked about unlimited liability, but it also works the other way. If you've got a negligent contractor, who is going after them? Is it going to be a trustee? But in the new format, it will be the company going after the negligent contractor. On the slide pack, Nigel talked about the guarantee. So our guarantee from our members will be £1 in the event the company cannot meet its financial liabilities. So that's our story so far. Happy to take some questions.
Any questions? Anyone got any questions for Nigel or Rob? No.
How does this fit into insurance through being an LTA registered venue? You must every organisation that's a registered venue has to have insurance through Howdens, don't they?
Well, you get
when I completed the pro forma for the last few years I've done it, they asked what sort of organisation you are, and I'm pretty sure I wrote down an unincorporated association stroke CIO, because, and I don't even know whether that's true. I mean, I don't know whether our circumstances are different to an organisation that is just a tennis club, but we have an umbrella organisation called the Old Wilsonians Association, which has registered as a CIO and has trustees, and the tennis club manages the tennis grounds and facilities on behalf of that CIO, and we have a bank account, but my understanding of is we have no assets. It all belongs to the central the central organisation, the landowner.
So Andrew, declare an interest here. So Andrew and I are members of the same club, so I know this club very well. What you describe as the uncertainty is because that has not been fully finished at Old Wilsonians. Either the tennis club is independent and you just literally hire courts and you have a commercial arm's length relationship with Old Wilsonians Association, or you are an integral part of the CIO. And it's that question which is very murky and they have never dealt with properly. My own view, as I was involved when they converted, as you know, I think the tennis club is part of the CIO, and you do have assets in the form of a contract with the head coach. That is an asset. You have security with him. If you're an external hirer and unconnected with the association, then you would have some sort of right to occupy the court, some sort of rental agreement or a hire agreement or lease or something. So one way or the other, it is relevant. But I do think you, Andrew, at the tennis club and all the other sports there are part of the CIO. And your first question was about the insurance. Any venue that registers with the LTA gets the LTA provided Howden insurance. It doesn't matter whether you're an unincorporated body or you are a company, but it was the Howden's insurance that was at the heart of the story I told at the beginning, where they tried to duck out of the liability for something that happened on a club's court during a county championship. So, they behave like all other insurers. And I'm sorry for anyone who's on the call who might work in insurance, but I have a fairly dim view of their sort of integrity in really living up to the expectation of the people who pay the premiums. But I think, you will be insured whether you're a company, whether you're an unincorporated association or a CIO or a friendly society or a whatever. So, and you should have in your registration documents on the LTA website, you should have an insurance certificate there, which normally I think the club has printed and put on a notice board somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Rob. Would it be possible for you to give me a bit more detail on the stamp duty issue that you referenced?
So am I on mute?
No, you're all right.
Can hear you.
No, at Mepham we've got both leasehold and freehold, and the freehold, our back two courts, I think there's a threshold, and I'm really on shaky ground here about how much stamp duty before you pay stamp duty. So we had to get those courts valued, or that land valued, and then the valuer then had to see, well, what else could it be used for? It's near enough landlocked. So
125,000, Rob.
125,000. Thanks,
is the
Nigel.
bottom threshold.
Yeah. So we got it valued, and it was about 40,000. We got it valued at, so it was therefore below the 125, and therefore there's not stamp duty risk at all.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that risk, so it's obviously our circumstances will be different, and I'll look into them. But it's good to have it flagged as another thing to look into.
The accountant says you just got to be mindful. Again, I'm wary of people on the call of a very an HMRC inspector being a bit too clever on these things.
Are you thinking of me?
Yeah. Well, I work in insurance, so that's 15 odd.
For those who don't know, I used to work for HMRC. I spent 33 years in HMRC.
Yeah.
So HMRC does challenge cask status, and they are notified of any transfer of land, whether it's leasehold or freehold. Where you legally transfer it from, you convey it under the sort of conveyance type arrangement you have when you buy and sell a house. Those documents automatically pass through HMRC electronically, and they cannot now be missed. So if you are above that threshold of the value of the land, then you may have to have stamp duty, and it may be a factor in your decision whether to proceed or not. But equally, the more value you have, the more risk you're sitting on by not changing. Sorry.
Yeah, just wanted to ask a quick question. You spoke about the term of office of trustees or directors, my understanding is that it's pretty hard to get volunteers for per se, and I think Kent have experienced that themselves. We at Crescent are very lucky. We have 7 trustees, but we don't have a term of office per se in terms of, I think Rob said you've set your directors out and you can rejoin after 3 years. We appoint on an annual basis, and we're quite happy with that and quite fortunate. My concern is that a lot of these people who are particularly at medium-sized clubs or smaller clubs will struggle to get volunteers when you use the word trustee or director. And I think what's the point I'm trying to make? It's really important that when you go down this process, and we're a charity incorporated, is that you explain the thing around liability. That's the big fear of people when you go down here. Why am I taking this responsibility on? Are they going to take my house away, etc., etc.? So I think the key thing is that you do explain where around the liability issue. That may encourage you to get more people to get involved.
I mean, that's really important, Nick, because in the structure you outline and where Rob is going, the people who are volunteering and putting their name in the frame are actually better protected than those in loosely formed, unincorporated association type clubs. And that, that isn't something people naturally think about.
I just think it's very important that if you are going to have that discussion, that's quite high up on your bit of paper, because that will attract people and the fear factor's gone, and then people are much more open to perhaps considering the pluses rather than the negativity they've got in their own minds about actually putting their hands up and volunteering.
And a plus, of course, they could be a key volunteer to get Wimbledon tickets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Any more thoughts? I mean, I like the structure that Rob described, where you have a sort of a working committee. Sorry, excuse me, that's my phone just going off. Unfortunately, it's the LTA. Yeah, where you have a sort of committee of doers, and then you have the more non-executive oversight with a bit of independence, I think is a very good structure. In Kent, we've done it slightly differently in that we obviously have a paid professional team, which includes Janice. And then as trustees, we are doers. A lot of us do an awful lot. But we do, amongst our board, have a lot of people whose touch point with tennis is much less than mine would be, and who bring a large degree of independence. And they're not all people from clubs, they're not people from club committees, some of them aren't even players, and a few of them are parents. So it is important in your committee, whether they're trustees or whatever committee you have, that you try and get diversity of age, background, their sort of relationship with tennis. So don't overlook parents of the children in your coaching arrangements. They are a great source of volunteers, and that's actually how we have recruited quite a lot of volunteers in Kent. It's a sort of body of people you have a lot of contact with, and they're there. They have enormous other skills to bring. You just have to be mindful that parents of younger children obviously are maybe a bit time poor, but that's not to say they don't have a lot of value when you can get their time.
So just adding to that, just on a MEP, and this is me envisaging it more than anything else, I see our board of directors making strategic decisions, making sure we're doing our accounts returns on time, the articles of associations are followed, and if there's anything controversial that the club wishes to do, then they are involved, and that could be potentially changing the coaching the coaching team, whereas they don't need to be involved with a lot of the day-to-day of where we're going to hold the Christmas party this year. So that's still going to go on. So we're a work in progress. We'll have to kind of see how that works, but that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nigel and Rob, for joining us and sharing all your knowledge with us today. It's been brilliant, and thank you everyone for joining us. Just the last few actions from me. Hopefully you all received the Kent Tennis newsletter. If you don't, then do pop me an email and I will add you to the mailing list. With this newsletter, please remember to share it with your members and encourage them to sign up. We're more people on our mailing list, the better. Spread the word. We also have a coaches WhatsApp group, which we would encourage all coaches to be on. So please do check with your coaches that they are on the Kent Tennis Coaches Network. I will provide the link to joining up in my follow-up email. And is it okay, Nigel, to share your presentation?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Okay, so I'll be sharing the presentation and a few links of actions for you to see, to follow up.
And I'm happy, Janice, you can give people my email address if people want to ask questions or want
that was
help.
I was going to ask you that privately. Did you want your LTA email or your personal?
I don't have an LTA email.
Oh, you don't have one anymore. Okay. And Rob, would you be happy for yours to be shared?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay, thank you. So I'll share Rob's and Nigel's should you wish to make direct contact with them. Also, we have a new website out there, so I don't know if anyone's noticed it yet, but it's really nice and easy to navigate around. Please bear with us. We do have some updates to make on it, which will be done hopefully within the next week or so. So we're just waiting to get those updates done, but hopefully you'll enjoy navigating on our new website. And remember, if you're on our social media, then do follow us and share stories. We like to share your stories as well. So it just spreads the word around our community, how much great work's going on within Kent. And then our next coffee morning is going to be on Tuesday, the 9th of June, where we'll be covering the topic of connecting with your communities, and our EDI mentors will be joining us for that. So do please join us on the 9th of June, and the links and details will be in the newsletter and also other notices we send to you. Keith, do you have your hand up?
Thanks, Janice. Just a very quick one, actually, from me. For those of you who don't know me, I actually sort of I'm responsible for sort of commercial partnership income for Kent Tennis. And if you're at the AGM, you'd have seen that we've raised a huge amount of money in the last few years, which is making a massive difference. And it's one of the reasons why we can engage so much with our clubs in providing grants for all sorts of things. One of the things I'm trying to do is get help from clubs to help get more sponsors, and we've got this income sharing agreement. In fact, we paid out we paid out £2,000 to a club last year who bought a new ball machine on the basis of them introducing us to a sponsor. So, excuse me. I'm aware that Old Wilsonians and Sevenoaks on this call are already engaged with us. But if you're a club that's not, I'd love to have a conversation with you because I think it's a really exciting opportunity. We've produced a very simple poster, and all you need to do is put it up on your notice board. But obviously, you probably need to get that signed off by your committee. I'd love to have a conversation with anyone who doesn't know about this. So please get in touch with me, and you can get my details from Janice if you'd like to have that chat. Thanks, Janice.
Okay. Keith, would you like your LTA email address?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, that's it then for now. So thank you.
You're ignoring me, Janice.
Sorry. Oh, Nigel, sorry, you got your hand up. Sorry, Nigel.
So a couple of other things I was just going to bring to people's attention. You may have seen it already or you may not. In Kent, we have a photo competition. So as you guys are doing all the great stuff you do in your clubs through the year, and you take photos to use on your own social media and on your website, we're looking for you to submit examples of great photos, particularly ones that are around inclusion, so including anybody. And great photos are ones that show the emotion of the people playing and how much it means to them, and great support from people around them. We had a competition last year. The LTA ran it for the first time, and we run one. And it's for any photo taken in Kent or by a Kent person around tennis and paddle. And the deadline for submissions is sometime in October, I think, isn't it, Janice? So you've got plenty of time.
Yeah, we have got it in our newsletter, and I will put more information in this follow-up link, so you've got all the dates there.
But it's a win-win for a club. So if you think about the imagery you want on your own website to project the right impression to the community and attract new people into your club and maybe different sectors of society, whether you're showing, I don't know, someone in a wheelchair or someone who's really old being helped, or a really young child, or someone from a different background, they make great impression on the audience to encourage people to walk through your doors and then eventually become members. Couple of other things. I don't know, Janice, whether you've had a coffee morning since the National LTA Awards. Don't think we have. So Kent won 5 awards in the National Awards. You know that we have the Kent Awards. They open in June at Volunteer Week, and they close in November normally, I think. And then there are 38 counties plus Scotland plus Wales, and the top 5 out of those go to the national finals. We had 6 people go to the finals, and we actually won the award in 5 of those, which is, I think, a record and the most of any county. And it was absolutely stunningly brilliant. So let's keep that up. And when the nomination window opens, think about nominating people in your clubs, and great young people, great coaches, great volunteers. And finally, I'm going to say Janice and the team are being expanded. I don't know whether we've said anything publicly, but as chair, I'm not going to hide it. We are recruiting. You will have seen adverts out. And we are now at the interview stage, recruiting some additional resource, so there will be even more help to support clubs and volunteers and coaches and competitions in our space. So when we have people to announce, we will, and when we know when they're starting, we'll let you know. But we're at the interview stage now. That's it from me, Janice.
Thank you, Nigel. So from me, goodbye to everyone. Have a brilliant week, and we look forward to seeing you at our next coffee morning on venue forums in the future. So bye.
Bye, everyone.
Right.